Hello, so welcome to this video for COMP3218, Game Design and Development at the University of Southampton. My name's Dave Millard, I'm one of the lecturers on the course, and I'm here with...
I'm Tom Blount, I also lecture on the course.
So, in this video, we're going to have a look at some of the games for the second coursework that we asked the students to do. Tom, do you want to say a little bit about what we asked for?
Absolutely. So for this coursework, we again asked the students to make a small game prototype, but this time with a focus on story engine. So a way in which the game affected the story and the story affected the game. And they had to tell a story based on one of 3 different fables.
Brilliant. Well, in that case, let's get on and have a look at our first game. Right.
That is very, very loud, but handily they put a nice little volume slider on the thing as well. But yeah, that's what I call a title screen. This
is what I call a titled Goose game.
Yeah, titled Goose game. Anyway,
very nice.
Let's hit play.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, the geese are once happy. They could eat the food off of Toby's farm for free. It's very nice of Toby.
Yeah, well, you say that. They didn't think the farmer would hurt them, so they carried on. But then the farmer killed all of the geese. Or so he thought. So this kind of like cutscene is kind of interesting because it's almost like a sort of loading screen sort of effect. It would be kind of nice if I could sort of, like click through if I read it.
Yes,
because there doesn't seem to be a way to sort of skip through that. But
very nicely done though.
But yeah,
I love the graphics. I also love the fact that the play is actually using the same graphics as the cut screen. That's nice.
Yeah, and we've got the what's the word, like integrated tutorial stuff as well. That's really
very good. Yeah, very good with all the 10 geese. Oh dear.
A little bit brutal, but like aesthetically, the like black and white and then the highlighted bits in red.
Very effective. I am starting to feel guilty about my Boxing Day dinner.
Okay, so we've got a crosshair now.
So we've got a crosshair. Oh, and you can move the crosshair separately.
Yeah.
Oh, very nice little motion on the goose.
Yeah, and then we've got... This is what we say when we're talking about what's the word? Like really sort of simple and stylized graphics. It's just a bunch of stuff that's, I don't know, maybe drawn in paint. Oh, and here we go, more like nice tutorial-y bits. So we're being told how to shoot. So we can move the mouse and fire, but we can't progress until we've actually done that.
So we shot the log, there we go.
Ooh, 500 points for killing a log. Reload.
I just noticed the font. Well, the font's fantastic.
Do I want to kill the bunny? I don't think we want to kill the bunny.
I don't know, it feels like we're... Oof. Yeah, we don't want to become what we've set out to destroy, right?
We're a goose on a mission. Ooh, although, hang on, hello?
Yeah,
hello?
I shoot him. Yeah,
no,
I'd go with him.
I'm just gonna go past.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if I just made like a meaningful narrative decision there, or if I've just ran away from an enemy.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Cool. We got checkpoints and everything.
Last checkpoint. That's also a very good idea for these.
I feel bad, but I did get 5,000 points, and there's not a lot I won't do for 5,000 points. How many points do we get?
Here we go.
Oh, I just noticed the UI of the UI of the cursor as well tells you how many. Ooh, the rabbits are all very happy that I killed the dogs. Fair enough.
Yeah. So what's the little dot do then?
It's how much ammo I've got left.
Ah, and then you reload presumably.
Yeah, and you automatically reload. It turns to a circle to show you how long you've got left to reload as well. So lots of like little UI flourishes that are really, really nice.
Greetings, Goose. It does help. Well, what do you think? Should we let the... I think the rabbits deserve to get revenge as well. They've been shot and eaten for years. Who are we to say that they can't take part? Okay, so now we have one rabbit. What does he do?
I don't know, but he's coming with us.
He's hopping around. Be like that Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Go on.
Uh-oh. Okay, I was worried that Rabbit Friend was... Ooh, okay.
Oh, that's bad.
This is fine.
Shot him in the knees. Oh, there's sheep as well now.
What was it?
Oh, the sheep are happy. They don't like dogs, do they?
So the cursor is kind of interesting. It feels like it snaps to
whatever
it
does
enemy, which is
that way.
difficult to. There we go. Oh god, there's a lot of them. Yeah, what was I saying? 2 legs bad, 4 legs good, but we're a goose, so that doesn't quite work.
Yeah. So I haven't seen. Do the farmers shoot at you, or are they just obstacles?
I think. Yep. Although it didn't do a lot of damage. Ooh, okay.
Okay.
The aiming
I
is
like this. Yeah, it does seem strange. Even just looking at it from here, it looks kind of odd. Presumably, you can just go past.
All right. Yeah, that guy is behind a bullet-defying bush or something, perhaps.
Yeah.
We got one there. Yeah, gameplay-wise, the style is a bit odd. It's sort of like set up as a sort of like really sort of not first-person, but like third-person shooter.
Yeah.
But mechanically, it seems pretty optimal to just sit and try and shoot stuff before I'm in range of it.
Yeah.
Before they're in range of me, rather. Oh no, I accidentally. And yeah, the actual sort of like the way the cursor hops means.
Right. Oh yeah.
I can't shoot the dog because this guy is in front of it, but as soon as he despawns, or I step over him, it'll snap to that. But the problem is then, like if Rabbit Friend jumps in front of me, there's going to be a calamity. There's a lot of sheep noises, by the way, that you can't hear, Dave.
Well, I think the sheep were very happy.
Let's see, sheep standing in the wrong place. Sheep happy, and then charge. Oh no, what's it? Today I'm going to cause problems on purpose. Oh, I think
you just shot a sheep.
I did.
Don't kill us.
There we go. Can I shoot the tractor? I can shoot the tractor. Bonus points.
Bonus points for tractors.
This farmer's good as well.
This farmer's got a veritable army of helpers. Load last check. I'm very much appreciating the load last checkpoint. That's very, very sensible.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so.
See, I'm having to be slightly more methodical than it feels like the game wants me to be, just because I'm fighting with the auto aim a little bit.
Yeah.
This is going to be one that's very hard to talk about and play at the same time, isn't it? But
No,
should we make an attempt?
Well, we can certainly have a go at the first bit because that's the quality. So presentation and play, basically. So what do we think about the information design, the graphics, and the audio? So I think we've already talked about the graphics and the audio.
It's pretty good.
And said they really are quite nice, actually. So I mean, in terms of the graphics, I mean, excellent would be consistent, effective, and appealing graphics. Prizeworthy would be consistent, effective, and thematically resonant graphics.
And that's always a difficult one to pin down, but I think the use of like black and white, except for red for the blood and the UI, actually is probably.
I think it probably does get there. I mean, I think the prizeworthy is really reserved for kind of stuff that stands out, right? That is really unusual, that works exceptionally well, it's imaginative, and that's kind of that resonant graphics. It sort of really resonates with what's going on in the game, and I think they do achieve that actually. I think that really is rather nice.
I'm just gonna turn down some of those sheep noises now because they are getting to me a little bit. Although I lowered them on the menu, I didn't lower them quite enough, I think. Right, there
let's talk about the audio then. So the way we're doing this, I can't actually hear the audio. So talk me through what it's like.
So we've effectively got something that sounds very akin to the Doom soundtrack, pounding away in the background. We've got a lot of shotgun blasts. We've got some sort of satisfying sort of clicks and clunks as we're reloading, and we have the constant sheep, eternity sheep. Just every time we go past a sheep, there's a bar.
But it sounds like the tone is extremely good. They've set it up as kind of like a, it's kind of harping back to those kind of classic first and third person shooters. Got that kind of comic element. links really nicely with the graphics.
Yeah, I am hoping that they are using music that they have permission to use, because we say this every time, but it is always interesting how often we get copyrighted strikes when we're doing these Let's Plays, because that makes it very obvious that they maybe don't have permission to use it.
So in terms of audio, excellent would be complementary and appealing effects and music, and it sounds like it's there.
Yeah, certainly there.
Praiseworthy would be sophisticated. So
I don't think we're quite there. And there's the thing that I always sort of point to when people ask, what could I do to get to the praiseworthy thing? It's sort of like adaptive audio. So things where when our health is low, there's a heartbeat fades in, or something like the music shifts. So I think what they've got is really good, but it doesn't necessarily.
I think I'd agree, and that's basically what that praiseworthy category is after, is more intelligent audio that's responding to what's going on. Okay, and the other element of this is information design. So you've got your health bar on the bottom left, you've got your score on the top right, you've got the scores that appear when you kill things and shoot up there. You've got the cursor and the reload and the number of shots thing going on. You've got the use of the colours to represent kind of destructive elements, and then the green to represent the power-ups, so they stand out as well. So I think the design is really quite good, actually. Do you feel like you're missing anything? I
don't think there's anything missing. I think the health could be displayed perhaps more clearly. Again, whether it's through adaptive audio or things like that. There are a couple of times I've died and I've gone, I didn't realise I was that low on health.
It's off. It's in your peripheral vision, isn't it? That's the problem. So look, excellent would be all key information is shown clearly. Good would be all key information is shown. I think and praiseworthy would be novel yet clear ways of showing key information.
I think it's definitely clear. It could maybe be done a little bit better.
So so for me, I think that there might be a little bit of an issue with things like the health, but actually things like showing you the scores that you get for things and having them go up into the corner, and the use of the red to indicate those kind of elements in the game. I think they work really well. So for me, I kind of maybe overall it's maybe at the excellent level, or perhaps somewhere between excellent and good.
Yeah, I think perhaps so. Oh, this sheep's going to be so annoying.
So while we were talking, you got to another kind of narrative decision, which is whether or not you accept this sheep companion.
Yes. So I think we're going to get to that.
What do these sheep companions do? Or the rabbit companion?
Annoy me and get in my way at the minute. I don't know if I don't think I can hit him, because if you'll notice, the cursor doesn't snap to him in the same way it does everything.
Can you send him off to do stuff? Like, can you?
If I can, I haven't seen the controls for it. Oh God, this is going to be a nightmare. Can I shoot these? I don't even know if I can shoot these, because the cursor's not snapping to these either. I think this might be a platforming section effect.
Wow. And also, here's a question: is that the same tractor going in a circle, or is it multiple tractors going at different levels?
Panic.
There we go. Oh,
I missed one. That's fine. Okay.
Oh my life.
Panic.
This is
panic.
Yeah, run away.
Brave Sir Robin. Cool. Sheep friend's still alive.
Oh yeah, he's still going. So someone in the back of a truck.
I feel like this may be a boss fight because we don't have our gun out.
What have you done?
You've destroyed everything.
Destroyed everything.
Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya.
This is for my brothers. That's interesting. Is that a false choice?
I will find out.
Okay. Oh, they've got a health there at the top. It's another. Okay, and they're throwing things at you, are they? Or you? Things seem to be emerging.
Oh, yeah. Oh God. Okay.
Game over.
Okay, so we get to make the choice again.
Yeah.
So yeah, in terms of those choices, actually, I would say it's not hugely clear what either before the choice or after the choice. It's not super clear what the consequences are.
The consequences, either narratively or in terms of mechanics.
I mean, there's an NPC following us, but beyond that, what does it do?
Well, look, let's finish off the quality bit, and then we can talk about the story.
Oh, we saw. Okay, let's do that. Yes.
So we're on to meaningful play. So that's mechanics, controls, and bugs. I've not seen any bugs, and it looks to me that's a reasonably complex game. So that puts it up in the excellent level, I think.
Yeah. So I think that's the thing. The bug-wise, I don't think we've seen any. The controls are maybe not super smooth and usable.
So good would be a reasonable set of smooth, usable controls. Satisfactory would be a reasonable set of usable controls. So are we more at that level, do you think?
Oh, I don't know. Because on the one hand, like, it feels like that sort of, snapping to targets and things is actually kind of... Like, it's more work than just letting me move the cursor however I like. But I'm not sure I like it. So,
yeah. Well, maybe halfway between the two to represent that they've made an effort to simplify things, but not quite made it work.
Yeah, perhaps so.
Maybe that's a reasonable way of putting it. And mechanics. So what we're looking for here is a set of complementary mechanics, basically. So what can you do? You've got
we've got moving and shooting. We've got health packs. We've got health bars for both us and certain enemies. You've got
these kind of little narrative choice elements that come in with the interface. So I think there seems to be a reasonable set of things, and they all seem to work together. So good would be a set of complementary mechanics, and I think they're definitely at that level. Excellent would be a wide set of complementary mechanics. Not quite sure if they've got there.
No, I'm not sure they do. They'd obviously have to be careful if they added extra things and make sure that it fits what they're going for. Obviously, like the obvious one in my mind is different weapons, different power-ups. Like always like extra things you can add to a game like this. They'd have to make sure it fits the tone that they're going for and everything like that.
Yeah. But also, I think, for me, it's we one of the things we talked about in the course was this kind of the problem of complexity, and that if that you don't want to add loads and loads of mechanics in. What you want to do is you want to increase the depth. Increase the depth, and I think that's maybe it. So it's things like you've got this animal companion, but it's not quite clear what the animal companion does. Maybe shooting some of these things could have some other type of effect, and that might be a way of kind of combining some of this stuff together. But anyway, I still think they've done a good job. I still think that there's plenty going on here. It all works together. It's a workable game.
I'm struggling with this boss fight.
Yeah, it looks tough. He seems to have an entire pack of dogs that he's setting on you as well.
Yeah, so the dogs I think are an instant kill, which is a little bit tricksy.
Yeah.
And sometimes they just spawn right on top of you, which is also not great. Yeah. Maybe I should So I don't know whether I need to chase him so that he...
What are these rabbits doing?
Interesting.
You've got a whole host of them now.
This is a bit of a bug, I think. This dog has spawned before I'm allowed to use my gun.
Okay. Not helpful.
Yeah, I don't know what the rabbits are doing, other than again maybe getting in my way. I don't know if they're are they effectively extra lives? Will the dogs go for them instead of? Oh,
well, that's what I thought. I thought you could sacrifice them against the dogs. Yeah. Okay, let's have a think about some of
these dogs are not despawning. This is a problem.
Ah, they're still there. Okay, so we have a bug. A minor bug, but still there.
Excuse me, doggy.
Okay, so we've noted there's at least one bug in there, but not game breaking, but kind of causes an issue. So okay, I know you're still struggling with this bit, but while you're struggling with this bit, if we think about the brief, they had to create a game with a story engine. And create a game where there was some agency and kind of non-linear choices. So thinking about the story engine, what we wanted was a kind of a subsystem where the story had some kind of state, and the state of the story impacts the game world, and where actions that or things that happen in the game world that also impact the state of the story, right? So what's that loop here, do you reckon?
So story to game, there's definitely an impact. We make a choice sort of narratively, and then we get an NPC following us.
Yeah.
Although, whether it's an impactful and meaningful effect, matter of debate, but there is definitely an effect.
But it happens, yeah. And vice versa?
I believe, and again, this is from speaking to them at the expo, because I've not managed to get to the end yet, but I think there is, it tracks the number of things that you kill.
Yeah, I've got the game notes, and it's basically saying that does appear to be the route through. So by the looks of it, you get a different ending depending on. So I think we can. Did you see that in the expo?
I didn't see this game in the expo. I don't know whether they weren't there or But...
Okay, so I wonder if we'd seen the ending, we'd know.
I definitely spoke to them about it. I don't think I saw it in action though.
Okay, so all right. So in which case, a good would be a number of examples of where the game world impacts the story, and vice versa. A number of examples where the story impacts the game world. So in terms of game world to story, there's one thing it's tracking, right, and that impacts you once at the end, right? So I don't think that counts as a number of examples, right? Satisfactory would be some examples, and pass would be a few sparse or minor examples. So it's the ending of the game, so it doesn't feel like minor, right? But so perhaps it does probably feel it's no better than some examples. So I think the game world to story, if it's just the alternative ending based on the tracking, that probably has to be at the satisfactory level, I think.
Okay. Does it mention anything? Do their notes mention anything about these choices, these branches?
The ones where the animal companions.
Yeah.
So yes, actually that's true. So if I have a look at they've supplied a graph along with their game notes. So basically it checks to see how many animals you killed, right? And then
does that include kind of the farmers, or is it just?
I think the game notes just say animals, and I'm not sure whether that's dogs or whether it's the rabbits and the sheep and just the kind of neutral animals. But essentially, if you have killed more animals, you have to promise that you won't kill any more. So your choices are different, right? And then it checks again to see whether or not you've whether you kill more or less than a certain number, and again it directs you off in different directions. And that takes you to your second conversation, which is with the sheep, I guess. And again, you have to. It changes the dialogue you get. So, do you have to promise not to kill them or not? And then, yeah.
I'm going to go back and murder some poor helpless bunnies to find out how the dialogue changes.
And then it looks like it filters you through into one of the endings, depending if you've
kept your promises
or not, basically. So I
think that's definitely the game affecting the story, because it's tracking like your actual gameplay actions and then sort of filtering that into.
You're right.
Which I think is a nice way of doing it. A lot of these types of games, it all comes down to that big sort of pop-up window. Do you want to pick A or B? Yeah. And it's nice when it's sort of done through gameplay. But you're right. The fact that there's a limited amount of control over those choices makes it a little bit trickier.
So, as I said, satisfactory would be some examples of where the game world impacts the story, and good would be a number of examples where the game world impacts the story in important ways. And it feels to me that there's only one important way, which is at the end.
Yeah, it feels like it's definitely an important way, but it's not multiple. So here, for example, like here, for example, this is like a minor way. So we shoot one rabbit, and the rabbits start giving us dialogue.
Yeah.
And vice versa, if we don't kill any rabbits and we only kill the dogs and the humans, we get dialogue saying "yay" or whatever, and then that has an impact on the story. I still get points for the rabbits, which feels like maybe ludonarrative dissonance.
But okay, so I think maybe halfway between the two, to reflect the fact that there are lots of these it's constantly monitoring you, but the problem is that there's only one important place, right?
I guess that goes back to what we were saying about the mechanics, that there's a limited number of things for it to track.
Yes, yeah. Well, and then we've got the story to game world. So in that case, there are two decisions, right? Which is do you want the rabbits to help you? Do you want the sheep to help you? In which case, it does impact the game world, but again, it doesn't feel like it's in important ways.
It's interesting because it almost feels like the promise not to kill them is more of an impact than them just.
I see what you mean. Yeah. So they're there as a reminder.
So here, like the choice is not come along with me, or I'm like, this feels like I guess, like they couldn't have this choice if I hadn't killed any rabbits, which is why they can't do it. But this is it story impacting gameplay, because it's not changing the mechanics, but it is changing the way that I play.
It's changing the way you play, or trying to. I think here we're looking for a story engine, so I think we need the game to be doing something, right? I appreciate what you're saying, and they're trying to affect the way in which you're playing the game. So for me, I mean, it's not to like there are no examples. I think there are definitely some examples of where the story impacts the game world, but I don't think that it's doing it in particularly important ways. It's not making a huge difference. Maybe it would if you could argue that if the companions were doing something a bit more active in the game space.
Yeah, because if I make the promise to the rabbits, but I've killed them previously, they don't come with me at all.
No.
But we don't seem to know what effect they actually have.
Yeah. So, okay, well, let's think about the agency. So here we're thinking about how rich is the structure and what's the quality of the choices you've got. So as an example of that, the structure would be, good would be that there are several branching points. So we've definitely got one branching point at the end. We haven't seen it yet because you haven't defeated the farmer in the truck, but I think we can assume it's there. So you've got the choice at the end. Are there any other significant branching points? There's lots of these little points. I guess you've got the one with the sheep, one with the rabbits. You'd argue those are branching points.
I would argue that they're branching points because they lead to a different ending, I'm assuming, or they're leading to different story states at least.
Yes, it's possible to recover from them, but they do. So I think that means that we've got several branching points, which is good. Excellent would be a number of branching points throughout the game. I mean, they are throughout the game, in fairness. You get kind of almost like 3-act structure, right? But they don't feel like they are woven into the game. It feels like you have like these 3 major points.
You do a bit of gameplay, you stop for your story choice,
and then carry on. So I think for me the structure is probably good. What about the quality of the choices? Are they interesting choices? Are they more calculations? So I suppose you could argue that they're because the companions don't have an effect, they're not calculations, but
yeah, it's sort of based on
interesting choices.
Moral incentive, I get. Like the idea behind it is clearly, are you going to go to whatever lengths to get your revenge, kind of a thing. Or
yes.
And I guess the fact that I was already trying not to kill the adorable bunnies kind of undermined that almost, because they couldn't say, "Oh, look what you've done."
Yes. So, yeah. So I think the fundamental thing is, first of all, are these interesting choices or not? Do they make you kind of think about what you want to do in a kind of deep way?
This is the thing. I think when they ask you, promise not to kill any more of us, is a much more interesting choice than do you want us to come with you or not.
Yes, you're right.
Particularly given that it's a straight line. If the sheep say, "Oh, we'll show you the way," it's like, well, is it the same way as just following the path?
No. So I mean, the other element of this is whether there's attempts to manage player agency. right? So in other words, if you try to decide things which does the game somehow recover and bring you back to the main narrative? And I think they clearly do that, in that you can kind of recover, and then if you behave yourself, you move across to the more positive endings, I suppose. And they've dealt with the fact that so what you effectively have here is kind of like a sieve, right? Your actions are constantly moving you around between how friendly are you to the animals or not, right? And depending on where you get to, you get a different ending at the end. So yeah, it's
and equally, so I think for the good option, if you like, it's slightly harder to tell. It's like come with me, or no, it's too dangerous for you, and it feels like the no, it's too dangerous for you is actually the not the evil choice, but the
yes,
like the way it's phrased doesn't seem like it's a good choice.
No. Yeah, I okay. So I think in terms of the quality of the choices, I think we do have some interesting choices, and I think they do make some attempts to manage player agency, which would put them at the good level, right? I wouldn't go as far as saying it's an effective system for managing player agency, because it's the same choice effectively again and again and again, so the same thing is going on. But yeah, I still think they manage okay with the agency. It feels like we're doing stuff, and making our choices, and the game is responding. In terms of the design elements, there's kind of like the techniques that they use. Oh, hang on. If you finally defeated the farmer,
yes,
you're a maniac. You win happy. Just kill me.
So I think
this
is like the good ending is we get the opportunity to spare him, whereas the bad ending is just we finish him off.
Yeah.
Although I'm not sure why that's the bad ending.
There we go.
There we go. Now we can ride off into the sunset.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. And that's nice. Right. I remember them mentioning this. The newspaper changes based on your actions.
Yeah. And that in your score turns out to be how much it costs damages. That's nice, actually. This would be the third of the 3 ways I can think about doing it. That's very nice. I like that a lot.
Yeah, so they sort of hint that there are other endings, and the tone of the newspaper will change if we do, I guess, a precision strike on the farmer.
Yeah, that's lovely. So, okay, let's talk about the poetics then. So this is whether or not the gameplay and narrative are complement one another, or if they're in opposition.
So which of the 3 fables have they based this off of?
Yeah, that's a very good question.
Because I think there's an argument to be made for 2 of them, but I think one of them is probably the likely candidate. That's the farmer and the cranes.
Yeah, the farmer and the cranes, although they've switched it around, obviously. But yeah, the farmer and the cranes, the moral there is, if words suffice not, blows must follow.
Which feels kind of like... I don't know, does the theme of the game follow that? Because it feels the good ending is that you can actually sort of talk the farmer down, I guess.
So here's the thing, right? I assuming it is that one, I don't think the game does a very good job of capturing that moral, but at the same time, actually, the story, which is this kind of insane revenge story,
this is
does fit nicely with the gameplay, right? It does work.
Like the premise fits it really, really well, because obviously it's using elements from the fable if it is that one, and it's also
that's true.
Something bad has happened. We can't talk our way out of it. Get to the shotgun.
Yeah.
But in terms of the actual mechanics of play, they don't really jive super well with it, because Undertale, I guess, would be again. It's a tricky one to encompass in a game, because a lot of games are, like violence is the first thing you try, but then if you try really hard, you can actually talk things through.
Yeah. Whereas this is one is kind of trying to show you that a show of force is sometimes necessary.
This is the thing, right? You start with the violence, and then the good ending is actually you can talk it through rather than it being the other way around, I guess.
So I think I don't think they've quite hit. They don't actually say, as far as I can see in their game notes, which one they're following. But that's the one I think is the obvious one. In terms of the poetics, I think you're right that it matches the premise. I also think that the actual story they tell, does match quite well with the gameplay. The maniac Goose, basically, and gels really nicely, but it doesn't chime particularly with the story. They've not quite have made that work. So, look, a good would be that the narrative and gameplay complement one another as the key mechanics are in keeping with the themes of the story. And satisfactory would be that they do not interfere with another, and the key mechanics have little to do with the themes of the story. And yeah, it depends where you pick the story up, doesn't it? It's like if you assume that the main decision has been made before you play, then it's fine. It's like, nope, we've decided that violence is the way. Show me the violence.
Well, like the ending sort of encompasses that, right? We can either talk to the farmer or murder the farmer. I guess the thing that stops it being like a really, really good sort of mechanics as metaphor is that it's not. Weirdly, it's not the farmer's actions that force our hand. It's whether we've I don't know, gone beyond the brink by killing sort of friendly, lovely animals that we're forced to kill the farmer. Where it was if we've tried to talk to the farmer and then the farmer continues being bad, then we have to sort of step it up and choose violence.
Whereas here it's reversed. Yeah.
And that's, I mean, I would say that's pretty obviously done because that gives the player more agency over the narrative than...
Yeah.
So I can see why they've done it, and I can see why it doesn't quite jive with the sort of thematics, but I think it feels like it's sort of towards a good if it's not quite at good.
I think I agree, and I think the reason is because of the premise, because the premise fits. And maybe there was a way of incorporating this a bit more if you'd, I don't know, had a more complex game where you had sort of flashbacks to the period of time where you're working happily with the farmer, to kind of to live on his farm, kind of like one of those idyllic children's books, right, where all the animals get on lovely and they go on adventures and that kind of stuff. I'm completely forgetting the fact that the reason these animals are on the farm is because they're going to get killed and eaten. And I kind of, so they're, but I think it would have taken quite a complex game to get that across. So I agree with you. I think kind of probably at the good level is about right. So the last part of this is the techniques. So that's the pacing and the way in which they've told the story. So in terms of the pacing, we've kind of got these 3 acts where we're making our way through the farm.
Certainly mechanically, the challenge sort of ramps up as we go quite substantially. Yes. There's a nice final climax with
but narratively,
there isn't. Part of it is that the story is mostly right at the start and then right at the end.
Yeah,
sort of the gameplay between it is. There's not a lot of story that's sort of drip fed over the course of it, because I guess the story doesn't, there's not a lot of evolution of the story throughout the gameplay.
What we'd be looking for is these kind of narrative events, right? Which kind of which up the ante as you go through. You would discover things about the farmer and discover what's been going on.
I mean, so there are certainly elements of it sort of done with the. Again, it feels like it's making the assumption that you'll have accidentally killed a bunny or something to start with, because then you do kind of get that sort of narrative rising of tension where the goose has to confront the darkness within and sort of decide whether it's worth committing to the path of revenge and all of that.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a path through this story where the narrative stakes do rise quite a lot. It's just that it happened to not be the first one I picked.
And would you say that there's satisfactory would be some ascending pacing.
Right.
So I think we can all argue that it's there.
Definitely there.
So good would be ascending pacing with a clear final peak.
And I think it's definitely there as well.
Because you've got the confrontation with the farmer, and that's both a narrative and a mechanical confrontation.
Yes, plus the epilogue with the newspaper at the end. So
yes,
that sort of little
so you get little denouement.
Yeah, exactly.
So excellent would be more than one peak, and that's I think the issue, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is you said it's kind of so that still puts it at the good level.
Yeah, you can maybe argue that they've aimed for that with the sort of like the narrative moments throughout, which sort of maybe form a peak, but. I guess it's ascendant that it doesn't have that sort of peaks and troughs.
Yes. So in terms of techniques, though, so this is to do with the writing techniques and the way in which the narrative is communicated. And actually, there's some really nice stuff here. So you've got kind of you've got a little storyboard at the beginning, which tells you the story.
Yeah.
You've got the dialogue and the interactions with the farmer, and then you've got the newspaper at the end, which incorporates some of the mechanical details to kind of tell the narrative story of what happened during your game. So I actually think they've done rather a nice job with the techniques.
Yeah, I agree.
So excellent would be appropriate and consistent use of more than one game writing technique. Prizeworthy would be sophisticated and novel use of several game writing techniques. I think they're definitely at the excellent level. Right, so they've appropriate use of these different techniques,
absolutely.
And the prizeworthy one. I'm wondering about that paper at the end, where it's not especially novel. You see other games do it, but they've done a really nice job.
Yeah, incorporating that as a way of sort of closing out the story.
Yeah, and feeding you back on what the game is. And I also like the fact that they've stuck with the black and white, a black and white and red theme, and so I'm wondering whether sort of. Halfway between excellent and prizeworthy, just for that sophisticated use at the end of the paper would be worth doing.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Like you say, it's not like there are certainly other games that do that, but it's a sophisticated technique that sort of
employed well and fits with their game.
Ties the narrative and gameplay quite nicely together at the end.
Yeah. Okay, so the last thing we're supposed to be looking at is the feedback and how they responded to the feedback. So they've given a couple of examples. They said the first set of feedback was how the core dynamic of destruction works with the story. Originally, the narrative was based around the destruction score. However, they got feedback we found this took away from the destruction mechanic, as there would be a narrative path where you only had a low destruction going against the core dynamic. To counter this, we make the main narrative direction be steered by the number of animals killed, as this didn't take away from the destruction of the farm's obstacles.
Okay.
But you still...
It's interesting, because...
Yeah.
You're...
watching you waddling along with these two ridiculous companions. It's fantastic. Yeah.
I forgot what I was going to say. I was too distracted by sheep.
Yeah. So so this is about the destruction mechanic, destruction dynamic, and whether or not had a narrative path which could be played with low destruction, which then goes against that core dynamic. So they did that by steering the main narrative by the number of animals you killed, as it didn't take away. But it's still kind of one of your choices to not destroy things.
Yes,
that's the problem.
Although from the way they framed that and from what I remember them talking about in the lab sessions, like the option was going to be like total pacifist. So this way they've sort of separated it into, I guess, legitimate targets and non-combatants.
Yeah, but you still get points for the non-combatants,
which is a bit weird. But I
yeah, I mean, I would have said, if you lost points, would that have made it more?
It's still... Yeah, it's a tricky one. On the one hand, I think it's worth mentioning that it's actually nice that they're still thinking about it in terms of core dynamics, which is a lesson from the first coursework that not everyone sort of maintains through. Not everyone
remembers. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
The fact that they're sort of making sure that their mechanics and their dynamics work with the narrative is actually quite good. And I think, in terms of the way they've tried to get around that, I think it works. I think you're right. There's still some area of You're still disincentivizing a particular type of destruction.
Yeah.
But because there's still like legitimate destruction that you can engage in, it still fits together with their game. You're right. Perhaps there are sort of ways they could have like done that even better. But I think the way they've done it works. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, satisfactory would be somewhat successful, and good would be successful, and it's kind of around there. They also have some other things to say that might help us here. So, the next piece of feedback was to include immediate and delayed responses to your choices. For example, if the player was to kill animals and not know this was a meaningful choice, it would be unknown until the end of the game. We decided that providing the player with continuous commentary from the animals and having the conversations between NPCs and the player include information as to the number of animals killed, that way the player knows they're making a choice and the overall narrative path. Right, and I think that does work.
I think that works. I think it still raises the issue of, but I'm getting points for this, so mechanically I'm still being incentivized to kill them.
Yes.
But so I think that's like this like mitigates that a bit. If I was getting points for killing all of these animals and then had no other feedback, that would be really jarring.
Yes. Yeah. And the last one was that in the original structure, the player had the final choice of whether to kill the farmer. This choice was purely narrative, but we decided to change this to forcing the player to kill the farmer. But depending on your playstyle and the dialogue, you get additional outcome can be achieved. Giving the player the choice not to kill the farmer would have gone against the story and the core dynamic, and allows the story to be driven by the player's continuous playstyle rather than a single final choice.
Okay, interesting. So you always kill the farmer, but the context and the way it happens
changes. Which does kind of fit.
I mean, that sort of resolves some of the things I was wondering about the thematics, right, and the poetics.
Right? Yeah, it's true. Yes, because it's not quite as clear cut as sparing them at the end. It's the the consequence of doing that. Okay, so good would be feedback has been addressed and the changes have been successful. I think we kind of had some caveats about the first item there about kind of the core dynamic of destruction and the sort of the way that the animals integrate, but otherwise I think they've kind of addressed the comments, and I think they have worked within the game.
Yeah, I think like as we've said, there are maybe sort of like ways they could have improved it even further, but the changes that they've made have definitely had a positive impact. Like the lack of those changes would have confused us quite a lot.
Yes, I think so. Okay, well that's the last point. So I've very much enjoyed watching you be a murderous goose for about 40 minutes.
Absolutely.
But perhaps we should move on to our next game.
Okay, and this is a Grimm Ending. So we've got a nice title screen, some lovely background
very
music.
Nice.
Lovely.
And, I like the characters.
Yeah,
very good.
Lovely cursive font.
Yes.
Ooh, nice transition as well.
Very nice transition.
My mum said we should get lost for a few hours.
Okay.
You thought we should come to the woods?
Come to the woods.
I'm not sure she meant it literally. Okay, and that's kind of nice. We've got red name for presumably red shirt, blue name for presumably blue shirt. So you're telling us which character's speaking. Signs say the bridge is to the left and the town is to the right. Which way should we go?
What do you reckon?
Well, this is the thing, right? This is kind of my immediate example of like not the most interesting of choices in a game. Is just there's a fork in a path. Do you want to go left or right?
It is sort of arbitrary. Yeah.
Like at the minute, we don't really have anything to base this decision on.
No.
Like if they'd have said, like we want to go to town, I bet there's a shortcut via the bridge.
Yeah. They need to set something up, right?
Right, let's go to town. That's that.
Oh, I like the animation.
Let's not go to town. Right, let's go and talk to this
oh wolf. No, a wolf.
You two look delicious, but I only have room for one.
Choose an option. Eat Peter, he's fatter.
All right, if you say so.
It's funny how danger really tests true friendship. Okay, so we're getting a sense of which of the tales this is.
Yep. What meat do you say tastes better? Okay, that's an interesting segue.
Yeah, pork or human. I have to say this escalated pretty quickly, didn't it? A minute ago we were we were wandering about, thinking about what our mum had said to us.
This is true, although it's de-escalated fairly quickly. It's like, I'm going to eat one of you, which one should it be? And now we're just talking about cuisine. That's pork.
Also true.
Now get out of my sight before I change it. See, that feels a little bit... the town's behind. Okay, we'll go...
That's strange. Okay, so I'm not really sure what the purpose of that interaction was, but...
Now, I think... So we have played...
Space to enter.
We have played this once before, and there is a certain bug where a particular scene is missing. And I think if we go into this house first, and then the stick house, that might be what causes it. So we're going to go into the stick house first.
Okay, let's go for it. Ah! Stick pig. Stick pig.
Stick pig.
Okay.
We come to
warn you. Screw you. Right, okay.
We will warn him, because there's a nearby wolf with a taste for pork. I'm not sure how he acquired this taste for pork. Don't ask me how I know that.
Yeah, I shall warn my brothers. So, you mentioned about the choices thing earlier on, and this all feels kind of inconsequential, right? Because, for the same sort of reason, I don't know anything about these two people. I don't know anything about the pigs in the houses, or why I should... want to help them or not want to help them, or because the wolf ate your brother.
So yeah, when we left, the house was all blown down. Now if we'd gone into the straw house first and the stick house second, there'd be 2 pigs in the stick house.
Gotcha. So that was the bit that's broken. All right, so basically we have to warn the pigs in order, otherwise they get munched.
But unfortunately, oh, there we go.
Oh no, the wolf must have blown the house down. We were doing something out of order. Okay.
So we say that the wolf... Oh no, there he is.
Pork is delicious, but I'm not quite satisfied. You declared no station last time and letting the wolf eat me. So why should I help you now? Okay, and he's running off. The irony's delicious, and you will be too. The end.
Okay.
Right, okay. Okay.
Let's go the other way.
So what happens if you go to... Oh, it is a completely different scene. Oh my goodness. It's Troll.
I'm supposed to be under the bridge.
I was about to warn you, this bridge isn't sturdy. She's going to eat you. Why is everything going to eat us? You could eat me, but Peter is bigger and juicier, or punch the troll. Punch the troll. You punch the troll. Oof.
We can go past now.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. Good.
Oh, that was easy. If only all life's trolls were so easily dealt with, eh? Yeah, the choice is obvious. Okay, wow. So this really is completely different down this branch.
Okay, so I can see we have a number of different fairy tales that we're pulling together for
this. It looks that way, doesn't it? What do you think? Should we try the... Let's
go to the candy... What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, candy house, that's going to be fine, isn't it? I have to say, I do like we haven't said much about it, but the art style is really nice. It's really well put together. Let's just leave. Okay.
Okay, so we can't actually gorge ourselves, we can just leave.
No, leave. Okay.
Okay.
That's it. Okay.
Are we going to run into... Oh, it's a troll.
Halt! Remember what happened last time, Mr. Troll.
I was about to say, isn't there supposed to be a witch?
Do you think they didn't have a witch asset?
You two tricked me. I don't think punching him in the face
constitutes
count, tricking him, but okay. You've been nice to me today. I owe you. Peter attacks the troll, saving you both.
Well done, Peter.
Quite a soppy hand. Alright, you're going to eat him, Peter.
Okay. The end. Oh, they're both happy.
Okay,
right,
so we've seen a couple of different endings. I'm going to keep playing through and seeing what other choices we can make. Shall we take a look at the mark scheme?
I think we should. So we're going to start off with information design, graphics, and audio. So information design. Well, Okay, so I think we're going to have a reoccurring thing in this conversation, right? Which is to do with what is narrative and what is game, right?
Yes.
Because the information design is really about reporting to us the state of the game. And the problem here is there's not much game, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, what information design is there?
Well, there's
You've got the signs, maybe.
Yeah, I was thinking like there's the sort of I was going to say like, the path that we are encouraged to go on. There is. Oh,
that's interesting. Come to the pigs the reverse way. Oh no!
No, it was Goldilocks. We really are doing greatest hits of all the fairy tales.
Just bears in this one. Bears all the way down. Yeah. So information design is a bit difficult because there's really nothing to tell us. As you said, we've got some directions around the space, I suppose, with the signs and so on.
We've got some nice sort of touches when we get the dialogue boxes. We get to see who's talking based on the colour of their name.
The colour,
like that,
yeah,
that's kind of a nice touch.
That's about it. So I think we're quite limited in a sense. So if we were to think about, well, let me think. What would it be? So. A satisfactory would be most key information is shown, and a pass would be some attempt at information design.
So, like you say, the issue we've got is that all of the information is shown. There's just not a lot of information to show.
There's just not a lot of it. I mean, there's definitely some, and I think the two examples we picked out are the science directors around a bit, and the color coding. I mean, even the bears there. The bears are brown, which is nice. So I don't know whether we could go higher than a pass. Unfortunately, I kind of think that some attempt at information design. I just think there's no, there's just not enough examples of it here. Happily, I think the other two things in this section are a bit better, right? So the graphics. I mean, I think the graphics look great. Some really nice animations. It all fits. There's a certain amount. Even the text boxes that pop up. The way that their little, even things like the space to enter comes up as well. That's very nice. So I think the graphics is really, really attractive actually, and works really well. So good would be consistent and effective graphics. I think they're definitely there.
Yeah, I agree.
And excellent would be consistent, effective, and appealing graphics.
And I think they're probably there as well, right?
And I think so.
They've used these things together really nicely. Yeah. I think there's always room for improvement, right? Things like the text boxes, they could have changed the default font or made it something other than just like a grey background, sort of really tied all together. But actually, it works. It works with the style. So prizeworthy would be thematically resonant graphics. So I think there's an interesting, there's some nice little touches here. There's things like the transitions. I think the character design is really nice. I don't know whether they're assets that they picked up somewhere or what they've done, but the way they've been put together is really good. I think they might even be on their way to prizeworthy. Okay, you think between an excellent and a prizeworthy, maybe? Because
it feels about right to me. I think, yeah. What about the audio? So I can't hear the audio well because the way we're doing this, but you're getting it.
So we've got some lovely sort of some background music on, I'm going to say a harp or something like that, and we've got some footstep noises as we're walking. Other than that, there's not a huge amount.
Okay, so I mean, a satisfactory would be some audio effects and music. So sounds like they've definitely got there.
Yep.
And good would be complementary audio effects and music. So it sounds like maybe they haven't quite got to there.
Yeah, but I think maybe between the two, because the music's very fitting for the theme. Again, it's kind of like what we were saying before, that like there's a limited amount of stuff happening in this, so there's a limited amount of things to tie audio effects to. But even just like some little what do they call like tactile noises when we click on a button or something.
So so that takes us on to meaningful play, and the first thing there is about mechanics. So what are the mechanics of this game? So you can walk about and explore, and you can select dialogue options, right?
This took a turn for the Grimm. Hang on, that's I guess why it's called. Anyway.
Yeah. Yummy. Yeah. So mechanically. So one of the things it is worth saying is that it is entirely possible to build a kind of an interactive narrative using Unity, which has very few mechanics, right? Where all you're doing is selecting. And what they've kind of built here is a bit like a kind of a walking simulator, right? Where you're essentially navigating the narrative by making dialogue choices and by moving between locations, right? And that's fine, but it isn't what we asked for. So what we asked for was a narrative game with a non-linear story and a story engine, right, which manages the relationship between the story and the game.
Like a game that tells a story rather than an interactive story.
Yes. So I think here we do have some mechanics because we can explore.
Yep.
Right, and obviously we've got the basic interaction. So the problem we have is that satisfactory would be a set of consistent mechanics, right? And I think the mechanics are consistent, but
there's few of them.
But there's few of them. Pass is a set of inconsistent mechanics, and poor is few mechanics. And I think what we have is an example of a few consistent mechanics.
Yeah. So does that average out at a pass, do you think?
Yeah, I think that's the best way to deal with it is to say that it's a pass. But I think this is going to come back and bite them a bit later on as well. Similarly for the controls, right? So
the controls are absolutely fine. There's just a limited amount of them because there's a limited amount of things to do.
So again, a pass would be few or challenging controls. So they're not challenging, but there's definitely few of them. Right. So I think it's a pass for controls. Bugs is interesting because the game generally is working really well, but there's this problem where one of the scenes is just missing, which is a shame. A good would be game is reasonably complex, but there are infrequent minor bugs. Satisfactory would be game is reasonably complex, but there are minor bugs, and pass is game is simple, or there are serious bugs. So the problem is what we have is a serious but very infrequent bug, and the game is reasonably complex. So again, I'm thinking maybe the satisfactory level is about right.
Yeah, I think that probably feels about right.
So that takes us on to the story engine. So this is essentially about saying how well connected are the game elements and the story elements. So what do we do in the game that affects the story, and what do we do in the story which affects the game, right? So, I think we will have some examples here because you do wander about, right?
Yep.
So the choices you make in terms of where you go in the game do change the story.
Yep, quite substantially as well. In fact, they almost give us a different story.
Yeah, and yes, and I think we'll get to that later too. But really, although there are lots of examples of that happening where we make a change in the story by making options about where to go, that's the only mechanism, right? So there's no other types of interaction that we do in the game that impacts the story.
Yeah, quite.
So satisfactory would be some examples where the game world impacts the story, and a pass would be a few sparse or minor examples of where the game world impacts the story. So really, I think what we need to decide is, actually, there are several places where you make a choice by walking. Does that count as some examples? Or is the fact that it's the only mechanism, does that draw it back down to a pass?
Perhaps it's between the two.
Yeah, maybe that's the way of dealing with it.
Because you're right, it's one mechanism for doing it, but it appears several times.
Yeah, so I think that's probably fair. And I think probably the same is true of story to game world. So if we think about choices you're making in the story space, I guess that's the dialogue options.
Yeah.
And that does
like,
have manifests in different ways.
Yeah, and the main way is it sort of gates which bits of the game that you can move to next.
Yeah.
So like very, very similar interaction working in both ways there, I think.
Yeah, so I think probably the same sort of place in the mark scheme. Okay, well, that takes us on to agency, which is all about the structure and the quality of the choices, which you've already commented on. So the structure is interesting, right? It's a very heavily branching structure.
Yeah, they've put in a lot of work to create this many branches.
So the interesting thing is, well, the other thing with agency is about kind of managing the player's agency. And they've managed the player's agency by just having lots of different stories all happening within the same game, which is a very exhaustive way of doing it. But I mean, it does work, but it only works in a very limited sense, right? So it only works because this is a very small narrative space we're exploring. But they have done it, and they've got multiple branches. So a good would be, for structure, would be several branching points. An excellent would be a number of branching points throughout the game. And actually, I think in terms of the raw structure, they're probably at the excellent, aren't they?
Yeah, I would agree. There's like a number of like very, very key branches where the story diverges along very, very different paths. I think in terms of the actual structure of the stories they've got, you're right, it's up at excellent. I don't know if it's quite at the prizeworthy, which would require a network of these different choices.
And I think that's the thing we're talking about. It's because they're completely separate. Like, there's no attempt to consolidate or make sense of branches or to kind of manage the narrative space at all. Right? And I think that means that they're limited to the. But it's still excellent.
I mean, there are obviously some elements that carry forwards, sort of based on the choices that you make. So, not Luke. I can't remember his name. Not Luke.
Peter.
Yes, there we go. Peter remembers, if we were nice to him or not, and that's carried forwards. But other than that,
yeah, that's true. Yeah, but yeah, okay. So choices then. So what are the choices we're given? So this is about the number of choices and whether or not they're interesting choices and whether or not our agency is managed in terms of the impact that the choices have on the story.
So we have the I guess the sort of the game mechanical choices, which is which path to take.
Which left to right, yeah, and then you've got the dialogue choices. So part of the problem I think is that the path choices, we don't have anything to go on, right? We're not really working towards a goal. So that's what you said right at the beginning when I forget what the choice was between the town and the bridge.
In fact, that's kind of like the premise is just Mum told you to go in the woods for a bit.
Yeah.
Like that's not what you'd call like an inciting dramatic question. We're just there and bumbling about. We don't like you say, we don't have a goal, so we don't know how we should be working towards it.
I think one of the challenges of building these kind of narrative games is you do actually have to come up with a narrative, right? You have to say, there is a story, that there should be stakes and there should be relationships between the people in the story that you use.
You could quite easily flip it. So, like Mum told us to go and get lost in the story in the woods, and oh no, now we're lost and we have to get home.
That's right, yeah. So now you have an objective. And you also have this kind of relationship with your mother that you could draw on. You need the relationship between the two of them, which they try to give you choices based on betraying your friend, but there's as a player, you've got no investment because they haven't done anything for you, or there's no There's nothing that makes you feel, enamored or fond of them, right? You don't understand their relationship in a particular way. So I understand those things are difficult to introduce, but they are kind of missing here. So the choices we've got, so satisfactory would be there are some interesting choices, right? And a pass would be few interesting choices.
I'm kind of feeling that we're somewhere in the middle of those, because they have the beginnings of some interesting choices, right? Like, you know, setting it up so that it's save ourselves or heroically sacrifice ourselves to save our friend. Is an interesting choice. It's perhaps not fully developed in this, and that's partly down to it being a small prototype. Maybe they ran out of time or scope or whatever. So they definitely have a couple of them, but you're right. Some of the other choices, even this one where it's like normal house or candy house, is relying on sort of context and information outside of what's been told in the story. And even though we know, like, the candy house is like probably got a witch in it. If we go to the normal house, then we still get attacked by bears. So
actually, this is a good screen, right? Because you've actually got two choices on the screen there, right? So you had the normal house and the candy house, and you also had how you were going to reply. Are you going to call your friend a fatty, or are you going to say I'm still deciding? And both of those choices, you have no reason to make one choice or the other. Right. That's the problem. So they're not calculations. But yeah, they're quite sparse. All right, I think you're right. I think sort of again halfway between the two would make sense. So that leads us on to poetics. So that's to do with how much the mechanics of the game resonate with the moral of the story or the theme of the story. So the theme of the story comes across. Well, it's hammered at you, right? Do you sacrifice your friend? So that's there. The theme's there. Is it in the game? The problem is there's no game part, right?
Yeah, in terms of the actual sort of mechanics of play, which you've already said, like the core dynamic, I guess, would be exploration, right? You're exploring the physical space and you're exploring the narrative space. It doesn't hugely come across in that, because in a way you're encouraged to replay through it and explore the entire narrative. The actions you're taking within the game don't really reflect the fable, even though it's very clear in the story. That said, they've gone out of their way to make sure like virtually all of the narrative choices reflect that moral.
So I mean, how would they've done that in the narrative? So I'm just trying to think an example of in play. It's slightly difficult with the way they've set this up here as a kind of an adventure type game, but you could do it by. If you were exploring with two different characters and those two characters have different abilities, right? So they have different ways of getting through the level, and you can choose to save one or both of them, and it's harder to save both of them, right? Then you're getting that idea about kind of, do you abandon your friends or do you work to save them? And that's embedded in the play, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, because it's just exploring. So
in fact, here it's kind of interesting because if you do go out of your way to save your friend, then he tells you that's really soppy and you should try something else.
Try murdering me. I mean, I think the only thing is that actually it is quite difficult to get this poetics thing working right. So that the criteria is fairly generous. So a satisfactory would be that the key mechanics have little to do with the themes of the story, right? So I mean, I think the themes are there. The themes are very clear in the story. That's fine. I just think they've got no real relation to what you're actually doing. Right. So that would be at the kind of satisfactory level, I think.
Yeah.
There's no discord, but it's not doing very much. Right. What about techniques? So this is basically pacing and the way in which the story is told. So if we think about the pacing first.
So you said right at the beginning that it escalates pretty quick, right? We're off on a lovely walk through the woods, and then we're deciding whether or not to sacrifice our friend to a wolf.
Yeah.
And then we end up just sort of walking through a village full of pigs. Although I guess there's.
Well, I mean, so the problem is you've got different segments to the story, but then but you choose between them, right? So you either go in and have the pig story, or you have the bear story, or you have the whatever the other one is, troll under the bridge story. So they don't kind of build on one another. The stories progress sensibly. The sort of causality is there, but the dramatic tension doesn't rise. And there's no kind of big dramatic endpoint, right? They kind of just get to a point. I don't think that it's.
And I think it ties back to what you were saying before, because we don't have a goal. We're just sort of bumbling around and things are happening.
Yeah.
But we don't have a sense of like pressure or tension or like drama, right? As we're sort of, if it was a case of we're getting closer and closer to home, and more obstacles are getting put in our way, and then there's the last, quote unquote narrative boss fight with the wolf or the troll or whatever who's standing outside our front door.
Yeah. So look, I mean, a poor would be no serious attempt to control pacing, and I think it's better than that.
It's certainly better than that.
Got there. So a pass would be pacing unclear or flat, and I kind of feel it's around there.
It does feel around there, I think. I
mean, satisfactory would be some ascending pacing, but I don't really think that that's happening. Techniques, on the other hand, I think they've done quite a good job. Again, it's in a way it's because it's wrapped up with their rather nice presentation. So in terms of writing techniques, we've got a number of things happening, right? We've got dialogue happening. We've got end scenes, which gives us the kind of denouement to the story.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got environmental storytelling, like here where the houses get knocked down and so on, right?
True. Yeah.
And they're all used consistently, I think, and rather well. So an excellent would be appropriate and consistent use of more than one game writing technique. And I kind of think they're about there. Prizeworthy would be sophisticated and novel. And I'm not sure it's particularly sophisticated, but it's done. It's done well.
I don't think it's quite there. Like predominantly, they're using the sort of like the dialogue to convey the majority of the story. You're right. There are a couple of other touches, like the sort of environmental changes to the background and stuff, which I think is quite nice.
Yeah.
The denouement is maybe a little bit generous. It's a screen of one of the characters with blood on their face, but you're right. It does.
It's there.
Yeah.
So I think they've used multiple mechanisms. It's all used consistently. I think they've done a good job. So I think it's at the excellent level.
Okay.
So that takes us on to feedback. So the first bit of feedback was. Oh yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say. So during the development, we would give the students some feedback on how they're progressing, and then we'd ask them to sort of interpret that and incorporate it into the game.
Yeah. So they said we got feedback to not waste time on assets, although the visual assets were drawn by one of the students. So, fair play to you because they look great.
They are really nice, yeah.
But they were given a simplistic design to save a lot of time, in addition to giving a minimalistic childlike fairy tale effect, which I think works really well. So they're also told to try and balance risk and reward. So I guess this is about in this coursework that's mostly about the narrative choices, I think. We tackle this by making our endings more distinctively good or bad. It is often rather clear which are the more out there options, so the player has to weigh whether they're sensible to say at the risk of getting a bad response or ending. I'm not sure that has been successful.
Yeah, and I'm not sure it answers the feedback that they were given in that case either, because having a clear good and bad ending is it also ties back to that sort of somewhat lack of gameplay. It's more about exploration and replaying and seeing all of the different branches rather than having to balance like certain factors.
They're also told to focus on fewer paths rather than lots. So they say they handled this by interweaving the tales together, for example, having the same wolf in 2 stories.
But they have done like 4 different stories.
But then you look at the narrative structure, and the narrative structure is a tree.
Yeah.
Right. One of the stories does have a little bit of interaction because it's the pigs, so it depends which order you visit the houses. but what they were basically told is, have fewer paths, or essentially they were being encouraged to have a network of paths, right? And what they've done is just had an enormous branching tree. So I think they've misinterpreted that. It is true that by you could argue they've gone for a sort of mirror world type approach where they're able to reuse assets in different paths, like using the wolf, but it's not really the point that's being made, I think. So they're also told to build up the narrative. They initially had a scattered narrative which was rather incoherent, and they changed this by having an introductory character at the start to introduce the basics of the game, and it becomes more complex as well as scary. I'm not sure I really see that. What's the introductory character at the start? Is them talking in the wood?
Yeah, or this bit, I guess, because the troll doesn't show up until, like, whichever option we pick, the troll doesn't show up again until later, or the wolf, if we go the wolf route.
And they're also told to give the players agency, which is why we've got multiple ways of changing the narrative. So immediate decisions, previous decisions, and exploration. So that does kind of work. We talked about the fact that your friend remembers the choices that you've had and has an effect later on. So I don't think they've made any disastrous changes here by any means. But it just feels like quite a few of them have just not quite caught what was being asked.
Yeah, it feels like
with one or two exceptions.
Yeah, it feels like for the most part though they've either sort of misinterpreted some of the feedback they were given, or just they've made some changes but it hasn't really panned out how they were hoping.
Yeah. So look, a pass would be feedback was addressed but the changes have had limited success, and a satisfactory would be feedback was addressed and the changes have been somewhat successful. So
to me, it feels closer to the pass side of things, but
yeah,
what do you think?
I'm wondering whether we should say halfway between, because they've actually done quite a few things, and some of them have been successful. I think. It's just a lot of them are. It's the misreading of quite a bit of what they were told. I think is the problem. So yeah, halfway between the two.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we're there. So yeah, so any sort of final comments?
So overall, it's nice that they have like such a sort of branching structure, and they've obviously put a lot of work into effectively writing 4 different mini stories.
Yes.
So yeah, I think it's definitely something that could be developed. It'd be nice if there were maybe a couple of more sort of slightly more traditionally gamey mechanics in it, but as a small little prototype or a portfolio piece, I think it's quite nice.
Yeah, and I think the presentation elements are really, really good. It's really beautifully put together. It looks fantastic. So, like you said, I think they just needed to really think a little bit more about how the kind of ludic elements would have come in. And it probably wouldn't have taken much, right? Something to do with when you have an adventure like this, the obvious thing is something like an inventory. Right, so the ability to find objects, pick up objects, and then whether or not you have those objects then has an effect on the narrative.
Yeah.
Right. So as soon as you do something like that, that's what they did in 80 Days. Does that, and it works quite well. So there are some relatively simple ways to do it that you wouldn't have to change the game radically to bring them in. So, but yeah, beautiful looking game. Yeah.
Okay, and that is the last game for this video, I believe. So thank you very much for watching, and we will see you soon, shortly, for another video.